Okay, good day for all. Below, we will analyze how countries and institutions solve national security problems from the perspective of each of the theory of international relations. This analysis will be conducted by Henry Esteban Castro Toca, Laura Camila Rojas Aponte, Valentina Amaya Amaya, and how speaks to them Paula Andrea Celis Corredor. Now, we will discuss how the theory of liberalism addresses the constant problem of national security. Let's start by talking about the theory of liberalism. This theory, in contrast to the theory of realism, asserts that international cooperation is possible and brings significant benefits to countries and institutions. Within its main foundations, we find that, according to this theory, states must collaborate through institutions such as the ONU or OTAN or adopt joint standards with the other countries, with the sole purpose of maintaining peace and mutual development without resorting to war. Another of the stronger fundamentals of the theory of liberalism is democracy. According to this theory, countries that are democratic are least likely to go to war with each other. Furthermore, this theory promotes economic interdependence between countries, as it is least likely that countries will face each other militarily. When faced with a problem, as both parties will be affected and suffer significant loss in the event of a war. Now, from a liberal perspective, national security does not only depend on the military capabilities of individual countries, but rather on the establishment of a stable environment based on the premise of international cooperation. According to the theory of liberalism, achieving this stable space with other countries requires diplomacy and dialogue in view of opposing disputes. Active participation in organizations or institutions that promote peace process and collective security is also essential. A clear example of this is the nuclear deal carried out between Iran and six world powers: the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, China, and Germany, how, together with the European Union, engaged in a process of dialogue and negotiations. Through this, they managed to limit Iran's nuclear actions. In exchange, the economic sanctions imposed were lifted. Now, more recently, the ONU intervened in the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, achieving a humanitarian truce through negotiations with Qatar and Egypt. This truce allowed for a pause in the war, enabling the delivery of humanitarian help, the release of hostages, and the evacuation of injured civilians.
Hello, my name is Laura, and today I'm going to talk about for neoliberalism. Is the one topic for the international relation. The title is the national security for the neoliberal respective corporation over conformation. First, the neoliberalism's international relation is a theory that means that the cooperation between two states is possible that beneficial, even in the anarchy international systems. It believes that states don't merely compete but can collate about international institution norms and agreements to solve common problems such as trade, security, and environment. In the picture, can see the relations in different countries and the work for WTO. Examples of applying neoliberal logic have three examples. In the picture, can see the three. The first, the European Union; the second, World Trade Organization (WTO), and the third, try to not a pro line for a nuclear weapon. How does neoliberalism understand the national security? The national security is now based solely on the military power. It can be archived those transparency, common roles, economic interdependence, and multilateral diplomacy. Security is common good that is most effectively acted toward interest corporation. Finally, the critics of neoliberalism's approach have two examples. The first is the fear for the perceived serious conflicts, and the second is the inequality of the power in the international institutions. In the first, the critics debate for the exist at international organisms and the trade conflicts continue to occur, especially when the vital security interests of a stakes. For example, the war of Ukraine and Russia, and parents for member of the UN Security. And the second example is equality for the power international institutions. The critics about in the promotes corporation is practice main organization and donate but with set powers this makes countries in the global south the industrial full international system. In this topic, the example is the UN Security Complete. Only five countries have to power main security decision and blockade, but special interesting, for example, China or Russia.
Now, in this video, we will analyze how critical theory in international relations approach the concept of national security. Unlike other theories, its traditional assumption and propose a broader understanding of security. Because a critical theory questions power structure, dominant narratives, and that state monopoly over defining security. Thinkers like Campbell argue that security should be about human emancipation, not just a state survival. For example, nuclear deterrence during the Cold War. From a critical theory perspective, nuclear deterrence is not real security. It's a from domination and fear that put humanity at risk. Critical theorists argue we should dismantle the system and promote disarmament. Um, other hand, post 9/11 surveillance and Islamophobia, the US and many Western countries increased surveillance and militarized security after 9/11. A critical theory question how is being protected and who is being excluded of target in the name of security. And another, climate change a security issue. Rising sea levels, drought, and forced migration are threats to people life critical theory or has used to redefine security in terms of humans' needs, not just borders and military defense.
Hello, my name is Esteban. I will be explaining this video the realms in the international relations and how it deals in the national security. I will be using a real example in the international relation in order to will be have a brief examples in order to know or understand how the realms works. So let's start for the what is the realms. So the realms is one of the main theories in the international relations. Take into account that international system is anarchic, so there is not any another authority above the states. So we have another thing that is the states are the main actors and their primary goal to survive. So, take into account the national security and military power are the two priorities for the country because the military power, the military control is the most important thing, take into account that is the center of the country is the military power. Well, as mentioned before, the states act mainly based on the self-interest, not for ideals or for another moral point of views, so just for military power. Another thing is how does the rebellions approach the national security? So basically, peace is not possible when there is a balance of power, when no one's states can be dominate others. So the realm sees national security as something states must guarantee that by themselves, since they cannot fully trust in another countries. They must be built a military power from the strategic alliances and use deterrence to avoid threats between the countries. So we have several examples for the realms perspective. For example, we have the Cold War, the US policy after 911. Another one is Russia invasion for the hurricane in 2022, and China in the South China Sea. For the last one that I mentioned before, in China, in south of China, it shows a clear focus on power, protection, and control, keep concept in the realms. So, take into account that China militarizing artificial island to secure, to protect or to give a security in the territorial claims and protect the trade routes in that area. And the Russia invasion for Hurricane, the realms explained this is a move to preserve the strategic security. So it's like a strategy for future scenarios. And then, well, we have the famous U.S. Policy after 911 in New York. The U.S. invade Afghanistan and Iraq, justifying that is a part of the war. So, from the rebellion's view, this is about defending national security throughout the military action, taking into account the situation happened on 911 in New York. So, for my conclusions, basically, realism reminds us as international system without global authority. States rely on their own power to survive. National security often comes before ideals, and most foreign policies and shaped by interest, power, and survival. So, thanks for watching. See you in the next time.